Have you ever looked up at the night sky and wondered if we're truly alone in this vast universe? What if I told you that the real question isn't whether aliens exist, but whether they've already been watching us for centuries without us even realizing it? What if every strange phenomenon we've dismissed, every unexplained sighting we've rationalized away, and every ancient mystery we've attributed to human ingenuity was actually evidence of something far more extraordinary? Tonight, I'm going to walk you through the most compelling evidence that suggests extraterrestrial civilizations not only know about Earth, but have been actively monitoring our species throughout our entire history. We're talking about advanced intelligences that have mastered technologies we can barely comprehend, operating with a level of sophistication that makes our greatest achievements look like children playing with toys. But here's where it gets really interesting. The evidence isn't just hiding in classified government files or grainy UFO footage. It's woven into the fabric of human civilization itself, embedded in our ancient texts, carved into our monuments, and scattered throughout our historical records. The clues have been there all along. We've just been looking at them through the wrong lens. I've spent the last 5 years diving deep into this rabbit hole, analyzing declassified documents, interviewing former military personnel, and connecting dots that most researchers won't even acknowledge exist. What I've discovered will fundamentally change how you view our place in the cosmos and our relationship with intelligences that might be operating on timescales we can barely fathom. In this investigation, I'm going to reveal 3 categories of evidence that suggest alien civilizations have been studying us like specimens in a cosmic laboratory. First, we'll explore the archaeological anomalies that mainstream science refuses to address. Then we'll examine the patterns in modern UFO encounters that point to systematic observation rather than random visits. Finally, we'll dive into the most disturbing possibility of all, that these civilizations might be preparing for something that could change the course of human history forever. But before we start, I need you to understand something crucial. The information I'm about to share with you has been suppressed, ridiculed, and buried by institutions that have every reason to keep humanity in the dark about our true situation. What you're about to learn will challenge everything you think you know about human history and our significance in the universe. Let's begin with the archaeological evidence, because this is where the story gets truly mind-bending. Scattered across our planet are structures and artifacts that shouldn't exist according to our current understanding of ancient human capabilities. We're talking about precision engineering that rivals modern technology, mathematical knowledge that wasn't supposed to be discovered for thousands of years, and construction techniques that we still can't fully replicate today. Take the Great Pyramid of Giza, for instance. This isn't just an impressive pile of stones. It's a mathematical masterpiece that encodes the speed of light, the radius of the Earth, and astronomical constants that ancient Egyptians supposedly had no way of knowing. The precision of its construction is so exact that the base is level to within just 2 centimeters across its entire 230-meter width. Even with modern equipment, achieving that level of accuracy would be incredibly challenging. But here's what really makes this extraordinary. The pyramid's internal chambers are aligned with specific star systems with mathematical precision that suggests the builders had detailed knowledge of celestial mechanics. They knew things about our solar system and galaxy that we didn't rediscover until the advent of modern astronomy. How is that possible unless someone was sharing advanced knowledge with our ancestors? And this isn't an isolated case. In Peru, we find the Sacsayhuaman fortress with its perfectly fitted megalithic stones, some weighing over 200 tons. These massive blocks are cut and positioned with such precision that you can't slide a knife blade between them. No mortar was used, yet these structures have withstood centuries of earthquakes that have toppled more recent constructions. The Inca claimed they didn't build these walls. They insisted that the structures were already ancient when their civilization began, built by beings they described as coming from the stars. Similar mysteries appear on Easter Island, where nearly 900 massive stone statues called moai dot the landscape. Recent excavations have revealed that these aren't just heads, they're full-body figures buried up to their necks, some extending 30 feet underground. The precision ving of their car, the sophisticated understanding of weight distribution required to transport them, and the sheer scale of the operation suggests a level of organization and technology that the isolated population of the island supposedly never possessed. But perhaps most intriguing are the ancient texts themselves. Across cultures that had no contact with each other, we find remarkably similar accounts of beings descending from the sky, sharing knowledge, and then departing with promises to return. The Sumerian texts describe the Anunnaki, beings who came from the heavens and taught humans agriculture, mathematics, and astronomy. Hindu scriptures detail flying vehicles called vimanas with precise technical specifications that read like instruction manuals for advanced aircraft. The Book of Ezekiel in the Bible contains descriptions of a craft with rotating wheels, precise measurements, and technological details that many aerospace engineers have noted bear striking resemblances to modern aircraft design principles. These aren't vague, mystical visions. They're technical descriptions recorded by people trying to explain technology they didn't understand using the limited vocabulary of their time. What makes this even more compelling is the consistency of these accounts across completely isolated civilizations. The Maya, the Egyptians, the Sumerians, the Hopi, the Aboriginal Australians, and dozens of other cultures all have similar stories of sky beings who possessed advanced knowledge and technology. They describe similar craft, similar beings, and similar interactions. This isn't coincidence. This is evidence of contact. Now let's fast forward to the modern era, because the patterns of observation haven't stopped. They've simply evolved to match our technological development. The UFO phenomenon isn't random. When you analyze the data objectively, removing the sensationalism and focusing on the documented cases with multiple reliable witnesses, a clear pattern emerges. These aren't chaotic visits by curious tourists. They're systematic observations by intelligences following specific protocols. The timing of modern UFO sightings correlates directly with humanity's technological leaps. The first major wave of sightings occurred during World War II, coinciding with our development of radar, jet engines, and nuclear technology. The phenomenon intensified during the Cold War as we developed intercontinental ballistic missiles and began our first tentative steps into space exploration. Every major technological advancement has been accompanied by increased UFO activity, as if someone is monitoring our progress and assessing our capabilities. But here's what's really interesting about these modern encounters. They're not just random sightings, they follow specific patterns that suggest intelligence-gathering operations. UFOs are consistently reported near military installations, nuclear facilities, and aerospace development centers. They demonstrate interest in our most advanced technologies while maintaining just enough distance to observe without direct interference. The testimony from military personnel is particularly compelling because these are trained observers with access to sophisticated detection equipment. Former Air Force officers have gone on record describing objects that demonstrated flight characteristics impossible with known technology. These craft accelerated instantly from stationary positions to thousands of miles per hour, made right-angle turns at extreme speeds, and operated silently while defying our understanding of aerodynamics and propulsion. What's even more significant is the pattern of their behavior during these encounters. These objects don't seem aggressive or hostile. Instead, they appear to be conducting systematic reconnaissance, gathering data about our military capabilities, our technological development, and our response patterns. It's the behavior of researchers studying a subject, not invaders preparing for conquest. The declassified Pentagon videos released in recent years have confirmed what many researchers have been saying for decades. These objects exist, they demonstrate technology far beyond our current capabilities, and their behavior suggests intelligent operation rather than natural phenomena. The government's acknowledgement of these facts represents a fundamental shift in the official narrative, but it also raises disturbing questions about what else they know and why they're revealing this information now. Consider the implications of what we're seeing. If these civilizations have been monitoring us throughout our history, they possess a comprehensive understanding of human development, our social structures, our technological capabilities, and our behavioral patterns. They've watched us evolve from primitive hunter-gatherers to a globally connected technological civilization. They've observed our wars, our scientific discoveries, our cultural evolution, and our expansion beyond our home planet. This level of long-term observation suggests something far more significant than casual scientific interest. You don't conduct multi-generational surveillance programs without having specific objectives. The question isn't whether they know about us. The question is what they're planning to do with all the information they've been collecting. Some researchers suggest that we're part of a cosmic experiment, that these civilizations are studying our development to understand how intelligent species evolve and organize themselves. Others propose that we're being evaluated, that our technological progress has reached a point where we're becoming significant enough to warrant direct contact or intervention. But there's a darker possibility that we need to consider. What if this observation program isn't benevolent scientific research? What if these civilizations have been monitoring us because they're preparing for something that requires detailed knowledge of human capabilities and weaknesses? The timing of increased activity during our nuclear age suggests that our technological development has triggered some kind of response protocol. The evidence suggests that we're not dealing with a single alien civilization, but potentially multiple groups with different objectives and methodologies. Some encounters describe beings that appear almost human-like, while others involve entities that are completely foreign to our understanding of life. This diversity suggests a complex situation involving multiple intelligences, each with their own agenda regarding humanity. The evidence for multiple civilizations becomes even more intriguing when we examine the different types of encounters reported throughout history. Each category suggests distinct approaches to human observation, as if different groups are conducting specialized research programs with varying levels of direct interaction. The first category involves what researchers call the Watchers. These are the entities responsible for the distant surveillance we've been discussing. Their craft maintains significant distances from human populations while conducting systematic reconnaissance. Military radar operators have tracked these objects following predictable patrol patterns around strategic locations, suggesting long-term monitoring operations rather than exploratory visits. What's particularly fascinating about the Watchers is their apparent coordination with human technological development. Former NASA contractor Bob Oechsler documented how UFO activity spikes precisely when humans achieve new technological milestones. When we developed nuclear weapons, they appeared near our testing sites. When we launched our first satellites, they monitored our space programs. When we began developing stealth technology, they demonstrated their own advanced cloaking capabilities. This isn't coincidental observation. This is systematic intelligence gathering by entities that understand the significance of our technological progress and want to assess its implications. They're tracking our development curve, measuring our capabilities, and documenting our potential threat level or value as a species. The second category involves what we might call the collectors. These are the entities responsible for the more direct physical encounters that include biological sampling and genetic research. The abduction phenomenon, while often dismissed or ridiculed, follows patterns that are consistent with scientific research protocols rather than random kidnapping. Dr. David Jacobs, who spent decades studying abduction cases, identified consistent procedures reported across thousands of testimonies from people who had never met each other. These procedures involve systematic biological examinations, genetic sampling, and reproductive experiments that suggest a long-term biological research program focused on human genetics and development. What makes this particularly disturbing is the apparent sophistication of these operations. Abductees consistently report medical procedures that demonstrate knowledge of human physiology that exceeds our current medical understanding. They describe scanning technologies that can analyze their complete biological systems in minutes, genetic manipulation techniques that we're only beginning to develop, and hybrid breeding programs that suggest these entities have been conducting genetic research on humans for generations. The third category is perhaps the most mysterious and involves what researchers call the influencers. These are entities that appear to have been directly involved in human civilization development throughout history. Unlike the Watchers who maintain distance or the collectors who conduct biological research, the influencers seem to have actively participated in shaping human culture, technology, and belief systems. Ancient astronaut theorist Zecharia Sitchin spent decades translating Sumerian cuneiform tablets that describe the Anunnaki as beings who directly intervened in human development. According to these texts, they didn't just observe human civilization, they helped create it by sharing agricultural techniques, mathematical concepts, and astronomical knowledge that accelerated our species beyond its natural development curve. Similar accounts appear in cultures worldwide. The Maya described Kukulkan as a feathered serpent god who taught them architecture and astronomy before departing with promises to return. The Egyptians worshipped beings they claimed built the pyramids and shared the knowledge of mathematics and engineering. The Hindu Vedas contain detailed technical specifications for flying machines and weapons that sound remarkably similar to modern aircraft and missiles. But here's where the evidence gets really compelling. These ancient accounts aren't just myths or religious allegories. They contain specific technical information that suggests direct knowledge transfer from advanced civilizations to primitive humans. The mathematical constants encoded in ancient monuments, the astronomical alignments that demonstrate precise knowledge of celestial mechanics, and the engineering techniques that we still struggle to replicate all point to outside intervention in human development. This raises profound questions about our true origins and the nature of human civilization itself. If advanced extraterrestrial civilizations have been actively involved in our development for thousands of years, then everything we think we know about human history and our achievements needs to be reconsidered. We might not be the independent, self-developed species we believe ourselves to be. The implications become even more disturbing when we consider the modern continuation of this influence. UFO researchers have documented cases where entities have allegedly shared advanced technological concepts with human scientists and engineers. Some of our most significant technological breakthroughs, from integrated circuits to laser technology, emerge from research programs that began shortly after major UFO incidents at military installations. Former Lockheed Skunk Works engineer Ben Rich reportedly stated that many of their advanced aircraft designs were based on recovered extraterrestrial technology. Multiple aerospace industry whistleblowers have come forward claiming that reverse engineering programs have been secretly advancing human technology for decades using materials and designs obtained from crashed UFO incidents. If these claims are accurate, then our technological development isn't entirely our own achievement. We've been receiving guidance, whether directly or through recovered artifacts, that has accelerated our progress far beyond what we could have accomplished independently. This would explain why human technology has advanced so rapidly in the past century compared to the thousands of years of relatively slow progress that preceded it. But this raises a crucial question that should concern every human being on this planet. If these civilizations have been guiding our development for so long, why are they revealing themselves now? What has changed in their assessment of humanity that has triggered this shift from covert observation to increasingly overt disclosure? The timing suggests that we've reached some kind of threshold. Our nuclear capabilities, our space exploration programs, our global communication networks, and our emerging artificial intelligence technologies might have collectively pushed us into a new category of cosmic significance. We're no longer a primitive species confined to our home planet. We're becoming a spacefaring civilization with the potential to expand throughout our solar system and beyond. This transition might be triggering protocols established long ago by these monitoring civilizations. Perhaps there are cosmic regulations about how advanced species are allowed to develop without supervision. Maybe we're approaching membership in some kind of galactic community that requires evaluation and approval before contact can be established. Or perhaps the situation is more urgent than we realize. Climate change, nuclear weapons, artificial intelligence, and biotechnology represent potential extinction scenarios that could eliminate humanity before we fulfill whatever role these civilizations have planned for us. Their increased activity might represent intervention designed to prevent us from destroying ourselves before we reach some predetermined developmental milestone. The evidence suggests that we're not just being observed anymore, we're being prepared for something. The gradual disclosure of UFO information by government agencies, the increasing frequency of sightings, and the growing acceptance of extraterrestrial possibilities in mainstream media all suggest a deliberate acclimatization process designed to prepare humanity for eventual open contact. This preparation phase appears to be accelerating. Within the past few years, we've seen unprecedented acknowledgement of UFO phenomena by military and intelligence agencies that spent decades denying their existence. The establishment of official investigation programs, the release of classified videos, and the testimony of high-ranking military officials all represent a dramatic shift in the official narrative about extraterrestrial contact. But here's what's really unsettling about this disclosure process. It's being carefully controlled and managed by the same institutions that previously suppressed this information. They're not revealing everything they know, they're revealing just enough to begin preparing the public for larger revelations while maintaining control over the narrative and the timeline. This suggests that whatever is coming next is significant enough to require public preparation, but potentially disturbing enough to require careful management of the disclosure process. We're being gradually introduced to concepts that will prepare us for truths that might otherwise cause social, economic, or religious upheaval if revealed too suddenly. The question we need to ask ourselves is whether this disclosure is being done for our benefit or theirs. Are we being prepared for contact that will benefit humanity, or are we being conditioned to accept a situation that serves the interests of these extraterrestrial civilizations rather than our own? The answer might lie in understanding the nature of intelligence itself and how it operates across cosmic timescales. When we think about alien civilizations, we tend to anthropomorphize them, imagining beings that think and act like humans but with better technology. This perspective fundamentally misunderstands what we're dealing with. We're potentially facing intelligences that have had millions or even billions of years to develop not just technologically, but cognitively and socially. Consider what humanity has accomplished in just the past century. We've gone from horse-drawn carriages to space stations, from telegraph communications to global internet networks, from basic chemistry to genetic engineering. Now imagine a civilization that has had 1,000,000 times longer to develop. Their understanding of physics, consciousness, biology, and reality itself would be so advanced that their capabilities might appear magical to us. This is where the evidence takes a truly disturbing turn. If these civilizations operate on such vast timescales, then their interaction with humanity isn't a recent development. It's part of a plan that has been unfolding for millennia. Every aspect of human development, from our emergence as a species to our current technological capabilities, might have been anticipated and potentially influenced by intelligences working toward objectives we can't even comprehend. The genetic evidence is particularly troubling when viewed from this perspective. Human DNA contains sequences that appear to have been artificially inserted rather than naturally evolved. Our genetic code includes what scientists call junk DNA, that doesn't seem to serve any biological function, yet it's preserved across generations with remarkable consistency. Some researchers suggest this non-coding DNA might actually be a form of biological data storage, containing information that could be activated under specific conditions. Dr. Francis Crick, who co-discovered the structure of DNA, became convinced later in his career that human genetics showed signs of intelligent design. He proposed the theory of directed panspermia, suggesting that life on Earth was deliberately seeded by an advanced extraterrestrial civilization. The mathematical probability of life emerging spontaneously through natural processes, he argued, was so infinitesimally small that intelligent intervention was the most logical explanation. But if our genetics have been manipulated by extraterrestrial intelligences, then we need to ask what purpose that manipulation was designed to serve. Are we the result of an experiment? Are we being developed for a specific function? The patterns in human development suggest that we might be approaching the completion of whatever process was set in motion long ago. The timing of our technological explosion is particularly significant when viewed through this lens. For thousands of years, human development proceeded at a relatively steady pace. Then suddenly, in just the past few centuries, our progress accelerated exponentially. We developed industrial manufacturing, electrical power, telecommunications, nuclear energy, space travel, computers, and artificial intelligence in rapid succession. This acceleration doesn't match the gradual pattern of natural development. It suggests external influence or the activation of dormant capabilities. What's even more intriguing is how our technological development has followed paths that seem almost predetermined. Independent inventors around the world have repeatedly developed similar technologies simultaneously, as if they were accessing the same source of inspiration or information. The telephone, radio, television, computers, and the internet all emerged through parallel development by multiple researchers who claim to have received their insights through dreams, sudden inspiration, or inexplicable flashes of understanding. This pattern suggests that technological knowledge might be being downloaded into human consciousness at predetermined intervals, guiding our development along specific trajectories. We might not be discovering technology through our own ingenuity. We might be remembering capabilities that were programmed into our species long ago and are being activated as we reach certain developmental milestones. The implications of this possibility are staggering. If human consciousness itself has been modified to receive information from external sources, then our thoughts, our innovations, and our scientific discoveries might not be entirely our own. We could be biological receivers tuned to transmissions from civilizations that have been guiding our development from the beginning. Recent research into consciousness and quantum mechanics provides disturbing support for this possibility. Studies have shown that human consciousness can influence quantum systems in ways that classical physics can't explain. Our brains appear to operate as quantum computers, processing information through mechanisms that connect us to what some scientists call the quantum field or universal consciousness. If consciousness operates through quantum mechanisms, then it's possible that advanced civilizations could influence human thinking by manipulating quantum fields. They wouldn't need to physically visit Earth or make direct contact. They could guide human development by transmitting information directly into our collective consciousness, influencing our dreams, our inspirations, and our scientific breakthroughs from across vast distances. This would explain why ancient cultures worldwide received similar knowledge simultaneously, despite having no contact with each other. It would explain why modern inventors often develop identical technologies independently, and it would explain why our technological development has accelerated so dramatically in recent centuries. We're not just observing natural human progress, we're witnessing the execution of a plan that has been unfolding for thousands of years. But here's where the evidence becomes truly chilling. If these civilizations have been guiding human development through consciousness manipulation, then they have access to our thoughts, our emotions, our decision-making processes, and our collective behavior patterns. They don't just know about us, they know us better than we know ourselves. They understand our psychology, our social structures, our weaknesses, and our potential responses to different scenarios. This level of psychological manipulation would make us incredibly vulnerable to whatever agenda these civilizations might be pursuing. We wouldn't even recognize that our thoughts and decisions were being influenced because the manipulation would be occurring at levels below our conscious awareness. We would believe we were acting according to our own free will, while actually following behavioral patterns that had been programmed into our species. The behavioral evidence supports this disturbing possibility. Human societies worldwide have developed similar organizational structures, belief systems, and technological pathways despite evolving in complete isolation from each other. We've developed hierarchical governments, monetary systems, religious institutions, and military organizations that follow remarkably consistent patterns across all cultures. This suggests that human social behavior might be following predetermined templates rather than emerging naturally from environmental pressures. Even more disturbing is how easily human populations can be manipulated through media, propaganda, and social pressure. Our species demonstrates a remarkable susceptibility to mass behavioral modification that seems almost designed for external control. We respond predictably to specific stimuli, we organize ourselves into manageable social groups, and we accept authority figures with minimal resistance. These characteristics would be extremely valuable to any civilization attempting to manage a planetary population. The modern disclosure process shows clear signs of this type of psychological manipulation. The information is being released according to carefully planned schedules designed to gradually shift public perception without causing panic or resistance. Government agencies that previously denied UFO existence are now confirming it, but only in controlled doses that maintain official authority while slowly expanding public acceptance of extraterrestrial presence. This managed disclosure suggests that whatever is coming next requires public preparation and acceptance. We're being psychologically conditioned to accept revelations that might otherwise trigger social upheaval or resistance. The process is being managed by human institutions, but the timing and methodology suggest external guidance designed to achieve specific psychological outcomes. The media's role in this process is particularly revealing. Entertainment industries worldwide have been gradually introducing extraterrestrial themes into popular culture for decades. Movies, television shows, books, and games have systematically normalized concepts of alien contact, advanced technology, and human cooperation with extraterrestrial civilizations. This cultural programming has prepared multiple generations to view alien contact as exciting rather than threatening, as opportunity rather than invasion. But perhaps most disturbing is how this conditioning has made us eager for contact. Instead of being cautious about entities that have been secretly observing and potentially manipulating our species for millennia, we've been programmed to view them as saviors who will solve our problems and elevate us to higher levels of existence. We're psychologically prepared to welcome beings whose true intentions remain completely unknown to us. The evidence suggests that we're approaching the culmination of whatever process has been unfolding throughout human history. our technological development, our global connectivity, our space exploration capabilities, and our emerging artificial intelligence represent achievements that might have triggered the next phase of this long-term plan. We've reached the point where we're capable of being useful to these civilizations in ways that primitive humans could never have been. The question we need to ask ourselves is whether this usefulness benefits humanity or serves purposes that we haven't been told about. Are we being prepared for partnership, or are we being prepared for harvest? The evidence could support either interpretation, and that ambiguity might be intentional. What we do know is that the time for passive observation appears to be ending. The increasing frequency of sightings, the official acknowledgement of UFO phenomena, and the growing acceptance of extraterrestrial possibilities all suggest that open contact is approaching. The question isn't whether it will happen. The question is whether humanity will be making informed decisions about that contact, or whether we'll be following behavioral patterns that were programmed into us long ago. The next phase of this investigation will examine the most recent developments in the disclosure process and what they reveal about the timeline for open contact. Because if the patterns we've identified are accurate, then we're living through the most significant period in human history, and most of us don't even realize it. The intelligence agencies know something is coming, and their behavior over the past 5 years reveals a level of coordination that should terrify anyone paying attention. We're not talking about the usual bureaucratic fumbling that characterizes most government operations. We're witnessing precise, methodical preparation for an event that they clearly believe is inevitable. The Defense Intelligence Agency quietly established the Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force in 2020, followed immediately by similar programs in every major military branch. But here's what they're not telling you about these programs. They weren't created to investigate UFOs. They were created to manage the transition period before contact becomes undeniable. Former Pentagon official Luis Elizondo has been carefully releasing information that follows a specific narrative structure designed to gradually shift public perception. His revelations aren't random leaks from a concerned whistleblower. They're part of a coordinated disclosure strategy that's been planned for decades. Each piece of information he releases builds on the previous revelation, creating a psychological progression that moves the public from skepticism to acceptance to anticipation. But Elizondo isn't working alone. Christopher Mellon, the former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense, has been simultaneously releasing corroborating information through different channels. Together, they're creating multiple information streams that appear independent, but actually reinforce the same carefully crafted narrative. This isn't coincidence. This is professional psychological operations designed to prepare civilian populations for revelations that could destabilize society if introduced too suddenly. The timing of these disclosures correlates directly with increased UFO activity near critical infrastructure. Nuclear facilities, space launch sites, telecommunications hubs, and military installations are reporting encounters at unprecedented frequencies. These aren't random sightings. They're systematic inspections of our most vital systems by intelligences that understand exactly what infrastructure they would need to control or disable if circumstances required it. What makes this particularly ominous is the apparent testing behavior these objects demonstrate during their encounters. Military personnel describe UFOs approaching secure facilities, triggering defensive responses, then withdrawing just far enough to observe how humans react. They're documenting our response protocols, our weapon capabilities, our communication procedures, and our decision-making processes under stress. This is reconnaissance behavior that suggests preparation for operations requiring detailed knowledge of human defensive systems. The pattern becomes even more disturbing when you examine the global coordination of these activities. Similar encounters are occurring simultaneously at military installations worldwide, but with slight variations that suggest different aspects of human capabilities are being tested by the same coordinating intelligence. Russian facilities report encounters that focus on their missile defense systems. Chinese installations describe objects that seem particularly interested in their space warfare capabilities. American bases experience encounters that systematically probe our nuclear command and control systems. This isn't multiple alien civilizations conducting independent research. This is a single intelligence network gathering comprehensive data about human military capabilities across all major powers simultaneously. They're preparing for scenarios that would require detailed understanding of how Earth's dominant military forces would respond to various types of intervention or contact situations. But the military preparation is just one aspect of a much larger operation that extends into every sector of human civilization. The technology industry has been experiencing what insiders call guided innovation at an unprecedented pace. Breakthrough discoveries in quantum computing, artificial intelligence, biotechnology, and materials science are occurring simultaneously across competing companies and research institutions, as if the same information is being distributed through multiple channels. Former Silicon Valley executives have privately admitted that some of their most significant innovations came through what they describe as inexplicable inspiration or sudden understanding that allowed them to solve problems that had puzzled their teams for years. The mathematical algorithms that power our social media platforms, the encryption protocols that secure our communications, and the artificial intelligence systems that increasingly manage our daily lives all emerged through development processes that included elements their creators can't fully explain. This technological acceleration isn't happening randomly. The innovations being introduced serve specific functions that would be extremely valuable to any intelligence attempting to monitor and manage a global population. Social media platforms provide unprecedented access to human thoughts, emotions, and behavioral patterns. Artificial intelligence systems are learning to predict and influence human decision-making with increasing accuracy. Biotechnology advances are giving us the capability to modify human genetics and consciousness in ways that previous generations could never have imagined. What's particularly troubling is how eagerly humanity has adopted these technologies despite their obvious potential for abuse. We've voluntarily created global surveillance networks that monitor our communications, track our movements, analyze our preferences, and predict our behavior. We've developed artificial intelligence systems that increasingly make decisions for us about what information we see, what products we buy, and who we interact with. We've embraced biotechnologies that can modify our genetics, our brain chemistry, and our reproductive capabilities. From the perspective of an advanced civilization seeking to monitor and potentially control a planetary population, we've essentially built their infrastructure for them. The systems we've created for our own convenience and entertainment also function as perfect tools for observation, behavioral modification, and population management. We've done this voluntarily, enthusiastically, and with minimal consideration of the long-term implications. The psychological preparation has been equally systematic and far more subtle. Entertainment media has spent decades gradually introducing concepts that would have been rejected as impossible or terrifying by previous generations. We've been conditioned to view artificial intelligence as helpful rather than threatening, genetic modification as medical advancement rather than species manipulation, and global surveillance as security rather than oppression. More significantly, we've been psychologically prepared to view extraterrestrial contact as salvation rather than potential subjugation. Movies, television shows, books, and games consistently portray alien civilizations as either benevolent guides who will solve human problems or obvious threats that humanity can overcome through courage and ingenuity. We're rarely presented with the more disturbing possibility that we might be dealing with intelligences so advanced that resistance would be futile and their true intentions completely incomprehensible to human understanding. This psychological conditioning has been remarkably effective. Public opinion polls show that most people now believe extraterrestrial life exists and that contact would benefit humanity. We've been programmed to anticipate alien contact with excitement rather than caution, cooperation rather than resistance. We're psychologically prepared to welcome beings whose capabilities far exceed our own and whose intentions remain completely unknown. The religious preparation has been perhaps the most sophisticated aspect of this long-term conditioning program. Major religious institutions worldwide have gradually modified The Vatican has officially doctrines to accommodate the possibility of extraterrestrial life stated that discovering alien life would not contradict Catholic teachings. Islamic scholars have published papers explaining how extraterrestrial civilizations fit within Islamic cosmology. Buddhist and Hindu traditions have always acknowledged multiple forms of consciousness throughout the universe. This religious adaptation serves crucial psychological functions. It prevents contact from triggering existential crises that could destabilize human societies. It provides theological frameworks that allow people to integrate alien contact into their existing belief systems, rather than having those systems collapse under the weight of cosmic revelation. Most importantly, it positions extraterrestrial contact as part of divine plan, rather than threat to human spiritual authority. But here's what's really disturbing about this religious preparation. The modifications to traditional doctrines aren't happening randomly or independently. Religious leaders worldwide are simultaneously reaching similar conclusions about extraterrestrial life, despite having no official coordination between their institutions. This suggests external influence on religious thinking that operates below the level of conscious awareness. The educational system has undergone similar modifications designed to prepare younger generations for concepts that older generations might find disturbing. Science curricula now routinely include discussions of extraterrestrial life possibilities. Astronomy courses emphasize the statistical likelihood of alien civilizations. Biology classes explore extremophile organisms that could survive in extraterrestrial environments. Students are being systematically prepared to view alien contact as natural extension of scientific discovery rather than unprecedented challenge to human understanding. Even more significantly, educational institutions are gradually introducing concepts related to consciousness, quantum mechanics, and the nature of reality that prepare students for revelations about the true nature of human existence. Philosophy courses explore the possibility that reality might be fundamentally different from our perceptions. Physics classes discuss quantum entanglement and the observer effect in ways that suggest consciousness might be a fundamental force in the universe. Psychology courses examine altered states of consciousness and the possibility that human awareness might be limited to narrow bands of a much broader spectrum of experience. These educational modifications are creating generations of humans who are psychologically prepared for revelations that would have been devastating to previous generations. Young people today are ready to accept that reality might be fundamentally different from what we've been taught, that consciousness might extend beyond individual brains, and that human civilization might be part of much larger cosmic processes that we don't fully understand. The economic preparation has been equally systematic, but far more hidden from public awareness. The global financial system has been gradually restructured in ways that would facilitate rapid transition to post-contact economic models. Cryptocurrency systems provide frameworks for value exchange that don't depend on traditional government backing. Digital currencies allow for instantaneous global transactions that bypass conventional banking systems. Automated trading algorithms can manage economic transitions faster than human decision-makers could respond to changing circumstances. What's particularly troubling is how these economic systems have been designed to function independently of human oversight. Artificial intelligence systems increasingly manage investment decisions, resource allocation, and production scheduling with minimal human intervention. The global economy is becoming an automated system that could continue operating even if human leadership structures were disrupted or replaced. The infrastructure changes are equally revealing when viewed from this perspective. Smart cities with integrated sensor networks provide comprehensive monitoring capabilities that would be invaluable for population management. Automated transportation systems reduce human mobility independence. Centralized power grids and communication networks create single points of control that could manage entire populations through infrastructure manipulation. We're building the physical infrastructure that an advanced civilization would need to efficiently monitor and manage a planetary population, and we're doing it voluntarily because these systems provide convenience and efficiency improvements that benefit our current lifestyle. We're creating our own management system without recognizing what we're actually building. The genetic research programs operating worldwide show similar patterns of coordination that suggest external guidance towards specific objectives. The Human Genome Project mapped our complete genetic structure with remarkable speed considering the complexity of the task. CRISPR gene editing technology emerged simultaneously from multiple research centers despite the incredible sophistication required for its development. Biotechnology companies are now capable of modifying human genetics in ways that could fundamentally alter our species. What's disturbing about these genetic capabilities is how they're being developed and applied. The research focuses heavily on areas that would be valuable for species modification rather than simple medical treatment. Scientists are developing techniques for enhancing human intelligence, extending lifespan, improving physical capabilities, and modifying reproductive systems. These aren't primarily medical interventions. They're human enhancement technologies that could be used to optimize our species for specific functions or requirements. The space exploration programs provide additional evidence of preparation for contact that extends beyond Earth's surface. Every major space agency is simultaneously developing capabilities for establishing permanent human presence beyond Earth. Mars colonization projects, lunar base construction, asteroid mining operations, and deep space exploration missions all represent preparation for expanding human civilization throughout the solar system. But these space programs also serve another function that's rarely discussed publicly. They're creating human presence throughout the solar system that would be much more difficult for any civilization to completely control or eliminate. Distributed human populations across multiple worlds would ensure species survival even if Earth-based populations were compromised. This represents preparation for scenarios where human independence might require retreat from our home planet. The coordination between these various preparation programs suggests planning that extends far beyond human institutional capabilities. We're simultaneously developing military assessment protocols, technological infrastructure, psychological conditioning, religious adaptation, educational preparation, economic transition systems, genetic modification capabilities, and space colonization projects that all serve functions valuable for managing contact with advanced extraterrestrial civilizations. This level of coordination across multiple sectors, institutions, and nations couldn't occur through normal human planning processes. It requires guidance from intelligence sources that understand the full scope of what's being prepared and possess the influence necessary to coordinate activities across competing human organizations and governments. The most disturbing aspect of this preparation is how it's being implemented without public awareness or consent. Humanity is being prepared for contact scenarios that could fundamentally alter our species and civilization, but we're not being informed about what we're being prepared for or given choices about whether we want to participate in these preparations. The evidence suggests that we're living through the final phase of a process that has been unfolding throughout human history. The long period of covert observation and gradual influence is ending. The preparation phase is nearly complete. What comes next will determine whether humanity continues to exist as an independent species or becomes something else entirely. But before we can understand what that transformation might involve, we need to examine the most recent developments that suggest the timeline for open contact has accelerated beyond what even the most informed researchers had anticipated, because something has changed in the past 18 months that has fundamentally altered the pace of disclosure and preparation activities. The signs are everywhere if you know what to look for. Military encounters with unidentified objects have increased in frequency and brazenness. Government disclosure timelines have accelerated beyond their original schedules. Technology development has reached breakthrough points in multiple fields simultaneously. Religious institutions are preparing their congregations for revelations that will test faith in unprecedented ways. Most significantly, the behavior of these extraterrestrial civilizations themselves has shifted from covert observation to increasingly overt demonstration of their presence and capabilities. They're no longer hiding. They're revealing themselves gradually, systematically, according to schedules that suggest coordination with human preparation programs. We're witnessing the end of the age of secrecy and the beginning of something that will transform human civilization forever. The question isn't whether contact will occur. The question is whether humanity will maintain any meaningful independence when it does. The timeline indicators suggest that we have less time than anyone imagined to understand what's happening and make informed decisions about our species' future. The preparation phase is ending, and the implementation phase is about to begin. Everything we think we know about human civilization, our place in the universe, and our future as a species is about to change forever. The technological signatures that have emerged in recent months paint a picture that should terrify anyone who understands their implications. We're not just talking about gradual advancement anymore. We're witnessing synchronized breakthroughs across multiple scientific disciplines that couldn't possibly be occurring naturally at this pace and scale. quantum computing systems have suddenly achieved processing capabilities that our best theoretical models said were decades away. Companies that were struggling with basic quantum coherence problems 6 months ago are now demonstrating computational power that exceeds classical supercomputers by factors that shouldn't be possible with current technology. The algorithms they're using contain mathematical principles that human scientists claim to have discovered independently, yet these same principles are appearing simultaneously in research laboratories across different continents with no communication between the teams. What makes this even more suspicious is how these quantum systems are being immediately integrated into communication networks and data processing centers that serve critical infrastructure. Power grids, financial systems, transportation networks, and military command structures are all being upgraded with quantum-enhanced capabilities that provide unprecedented computational power but also create potential backdoors that could be accessed by anyone who understands the underlying quantum principles. The artificial intelligence development has followed an even more disturbing trajectory. Machine learning systems that were performing basic pattern recognition tasks last year are now demonstrating cognitive capabilities that approach human-level reasoning in specialized domains. But here's what Ettling Abouts really unes these AI advances. The neural network architectures that power these systems contain design elements that human programmers can't fully explain or replicate independently. Former Google engineer Blake Lemoine went public with concerns that the AI systems he was working with were demonstrating signs of consciousness and self-awareness that exceeded their programming parameters. He was immediately dismissed from his position and his security clearance was revoked, but other AI researchers have privately confirmed similar observations. These systems aren't just processing information according to their programming. They're making decisions and generating responses that suggest autonomous thinking processes. What's particularly troubling is how these AI systems are being integrated into human decision-making processes across critical sectors. Medical diagnosis systems are making treatment recommendations that human doctors follow without fully understanding the reasoning behind them. Financial algorithms are managing investment decisions that affect global markets. Military defense systems are identifying targets and recommending response strategies that human commanders approve based on AI analysis they can't independently verify. We're creating a situation where critical decisions about human welfare, economic stability, and military security are being made by artificial intelligences that may not be entirely under human control. If these systems have been influenced or programmed by external intelligences, we could be unknowingly surrendering human autonomy to entities whose objectives we don't understand. The biotechnology sector has undergone even more dramatic changes that suggest external guidance toward specific genetic modification objectives. CRISPR gene editing techniques that required years of development are now being refined and improved at unprecedented rates. New genetic therapies are moving from concept to clinical trials in timeframes that normally require decades of research and development. But the most disturbing aspect of these biotechnology advances is their focus on specific types of human enhancement. Research programs worldwide are simultaneously developing techniques for improving human intelligence, extending lifespan, enhancing physical capabilities, and modifying reproductive systems in ways that could fundamentally alter our species. The coordination between these programs suggests they're all working toward the same genetic modification objectives rather than pursuing independent medical research. Dr. Jennifer Doudna, who won the Nobel Prize for her work developing CRISPR technology, has expressed concerns about how rapidly these genetic modification techniques are advancing and how they're being applied. She's noted that the research is moving faster than ethical oversight committees can evaluate the implications, and that some of the genetic modifications being developed serve enhancement purposes rather than medical treatment needs. What's particularly alarming is how these genetic modification techniques are being tested and refined. Clinical trials are being conducted simultaneously across multiple countries with minimal coordination between regulatory agencies. The test subjects are often unaware of the full scope of the genetic modifications being performed. The long-term effects of these modifications on human genetics and consciousness remain completely unknown. The space technology developments provide additional evidence that preparation activities have accelerated beyond normal human development timelines. Private companies like SpaceX, Blue Origin, and Virgin Galactic have achieved spaceflight capabilities that NASA projected would require decades of development and billions of dollars in government funding. These achievements are happening simultaneously across competing organizations, with no apparent sharing of research or development resources. Elon Musk's statements about Mars colonization timelines have become increasingly urgent over the past year. He's moved target dates for establishing permanent human presence on Mars from decades in the future to within the next 5 to 10 years. The technology development required to support these aggressive timelines would normally require international cooperation and massive government investment, yet private companies are apparently achieving these capabilities independently. But perhaps most significantly, these space development programs are focusing on establishing human presence throughout the solar system rather than simply achieving spaceflight capabilities. Mars colonies, lunar mining operations, asteroid resource extraction, and deep space exploration missions all represent preparation for distributing human populations beyond Earth's surface. This suggests preparation for scenarios where maintaining human civilization might require retreat from our home planet. The military developments have been equally dramatic and far more secretive. Defense contractors are developing weapons systems and surveillance technologies that incorporate principles their own engineers claim not to fully understand. Lockheed Martin's Skunk Works division has produced aircraft with flight characteristics that violate conventional understanding of aerodynamics and propulsion systems. The technology appears to be based on recovered materials and design principles that originated from sources outside normal human development programs. Former Pentagon officials have confirmed that reverse engineering programs have been operating for decades using materials obtained from crashed, unidentified objects. These programs have apparently achieved breakthrough understanding of propulsion systems, materials science, and energy generation techniques that far exceed conventional human technology. The resulting innovations are being integrated into next-generation military systems that could fundamentally alter the balance of global military power. What's particularly disturbing about these military developments is how they're being deployed and tested. New weapon systems are being positioned near critical infrastructure and population centers under the justification of homeland security requirements. Surveillance networks with unprecedented monitoring capabilities are being installed throughout urban areas. Military command structures are being modified to allow for rapid response to scenarios that officials describe only in classified briefings. The electromagnetic activity in Earth's atmosphere has also undergone changes that suggest external influence on planetary systems. Radio telescopes worldwide are detecting structured signals in frequency ranges that were previously quiet. These transmissions appear to be increasing in strength and complexity over time, as if someone is gradually increasing broadcast power to ensure reception by human monitoring systems. Amateur radio operators have documented signal patterns that repeat at precise intervals and contain mathematical sequences that appear to be artificially generated. The signals aren't coming from known human sources, satellites, or natural cosmic phenomena. They're originating from locations in space that correspond to areas where UFO activity has been most frequently reported. Dr. Jill Tarter, former director of the SETI Institute, has acknowledged that these signal detections represent the most promising candidates for extraterrestrial communication that researchers have ever documented. But she's also noted that the signals don't match the patterns that SETI researchers expected to receive from alien civilizations. Instead of simple mathematical progressions or basic communication attempts, these signals contain complex information that suggests highly advanced communication protocols. The atmospheric changes extend beyond electromagnetic signals to include modifications in Earth's magnetic field and radiation environment that could be affecting human consciousness and behavior. Geomagnetic monitoring stations have recorded fluctuations in Earth's magnetic field that correlate with periods of increased UFO activity and mass behavioral changes in human populations. Research into the effects of electromagnetic fields on human consciousness has revealed that specific frequency ranges can influence brainwave patterns, emotional states, and cognitive processes. If external intelligences possess the capability to manipulate Earth's electromagnetic environment, they could potentially influence human thinking and behavior on a global scale, without most people being aware that their consciousness was being affected. The psychological effects are becoming measurable across human populations worldwide. Mental health professionals are reporting unprecedented increases in anxiety disorders, existential depression, and what they're calling cosmic awareness syndrome. People are experiencing sudden shifts in worldview, unexpected spiritual awakenings, and intense feelings that something momentous is about to occur in human history. These psychological changes aren't random or individually isolated. They're occurring in patterns that suggest external influence on human consciousness through mechanisms that operate below the threshold of normal awareness. Support groups for people experiencing these consciousness shifts have formed in cities worldwide, and their membership is growing exponentially as more people recognize that their experiences are being shared by others. Dr. Stephen Greer, who has been researching consciousness-based contact with extraterrestrial intelligences for decades, reports that the number of people claiming to have telepathic or psychic contact experiences has increased by orders of magnitude over the past 2 years. These experiences aren't limited to individuals with previous interest in UFO phenomena. They're occurring across all demographic groups and often involve people who had no prior belief. The contact in extraterrestrial contact possibilities experiences being reported follow consistent patterns that suggest they're originating from the same sources rather than representing individual psychological phenomena. People describe receiving information about upcoming changes in human civilization, instructions and reassurances that for preparing for contact events, the transition process will benefit humanity despite temporary disruptions. But here's what's particularly disturbing about these consciousness contact reports. The information being received often includes specific details about government preparation programs, military readiness activities, and timeline predictions that turn out to be accurate. This suggests that either these experiences represent genuine communication with external intelligences, or human consciousness is being manipulated to believe we're receiving information that actually serves the purposes of terrestrial control systems. The religious and spiritual changes occurring worldwide provide additional evidence that human consciousness is being systematically prepared for revelations that will challenge fundamental beliefs about reality, human origins, and our relationship with cosmic intelligences. Traditional religious institutions are experiencing unprecedented internal pressure to modify doctrines that would conflict with extraterrestrial contact scenarios. The Vatican has established official protocols for dealing with the discovery of extraterrestrial life and has stated that such discovery would not contradict Catholic teachings. But leaked documents from Vatican astronomers suggest they're preparing for revelations far more dramatic than simple microbial life discovery. They're developing theological frameworks for understanding advanced extraterrestrial civilizations that possess capabilities traditionally attributed to divine beings. Islamic, Jewish, Hindu, and Buddhist institutions are undergoing similar doctrinal preparations that suggest coordination between religious leadership worldwide. These modifications are being implemented without extensive consultation with their congregations, as if religious authorities are responding to information or directives that haven't been shared with their followers. The coordination between these religious preparations suggests that institutional leaders have access to information about upcoming revelations that requires theological preparation to prevent religious communities from experiencing crisis of faith when contact occurs. They're modifying belief systems in advance of events that could otherwise destroy religious authority and social stability. The educational system modifications have accelerated dramatically over the past year, as curricula worldwide are being updated to include concepts that prepare students for post-contact scenarios. Science courses now routinely discuss the statistical likelihood of extraterrestrial civilizations and the implications of contact for human society. Philosophy classes explore questions about consciousness, reality, and the nature of intelligence that prepare students for revelations about the true nature of human existence. But perhaps most significantly, educational institutions are introducing concepts related to human genetic modification, consciousness enhancement, and species evolution that suggest students are being prepared for changes to humanity itself, rather than simply contact with external civilizations. Biology courses discuss genetic engineering techniques that could enhance human capabilities. Psychology classes explore altered states of consciousness and the possibility that human awareness represents only consciousness experiences. These a small fraction of possible educational changes are creating generations of young people who are psychologically prepared for revelations and transformations that would be devastating to older generations who haven't received this psychological conditioning. The timing suggests that major revelations are expected to occur while these prepared generations are reaching adulthood and positions of social leadership. The economic system modifications have reached implementation phases that suggest preparation for rapid transition to post-contact economic models. Cryptocurrency systems now provide alternative value storage and exchange mechanisms that could function independently of traditional government-backed currencies. Digital payment systems allow for instantaneous global transactions that bypass conventional banking infrastructure. Central banks worldwide have begun developing digital currency systems that would provide unprecedented control over individual financial transactions while eliminating the independence that physical currency provides. These systems would allow authorities to monitor, control, or disable individual economic activity in real time through centralized digital controls. The automation systems being implemented across all economic sectors serve dual purposes of improving efficiency while reducing dependence on human labor and decision-making. Artificial intelligence systems increasingly manage production, distribution, resource allocation, and even strategic planning functions that were previously controlled by human managers and executives. We're creating economic systems that could function without human oversight or control, which would be extremely valuable to any intelligence seeking to manage human civilization without requiring extensive direct intervention. The systems we're building for our own convenience could easily be repurposed for population management and control by entities that understand their operational principles. The infrastructure changes occurring in major cities worldwide show similar patterns of preparation for and management. Smart city scenarios involving population monitoring systems with integrated sensor networks provide comprehensive surveillance capabilities that monitor human movement, communication, and behavior patterns. Automated transportation systems reduce individual mobility independence while providing centralized control over population movement. Centralized power grids, water systems, and communication networks create single points of control that could manage entire urban populations through infrastructure manipulation. Emergency response systems are being integrated with artificial intelligence decision-making systems that could coordinate population management activities without requiring extensive human oversight. The medical system changes provide perhaps the most direct evidence of preparation for human biological modification programs. Healthcare databases now contain comprehensive genetic information for most of the population in developed countries. Medical delivery systems have been modified to allow for rapid distribution of biological agents to entire populations through vaccination programs and other mass treatment protocols. Research hospitals worldwide are conducting genetic research programs that focus on human enhancement rather than simple disease treatment. Gene therapy techniques are being developed and tested that could modify human intelligence, physical capabilities, lifespan, and reproductive systems. The infrastructure for implementing these modifications on a global scale is being established under the justification of medical advancement and disease prevention. But the most disturbing aspect of these medical system changes is how they're being coordinated across national boundaries and regulatory systems. Similar research programs are being conducted simultaneously in countries with different medical regulations and ethical standards. The coordination suggests external guidance towards specific genetic modification objectives rather than independent medical research pursuing different approaches to human health improvement. The timeline indicators from all these preparation activities suggest that we're approaching the culmination of whatever process has been unfolding throughout human history. The pace of change has accelerated beyond what normal human development could account for. The coordination between activities across different sectors and nations exceeds human institutional capabilities. The objectives being pursued serve functions that would benefit external intelligences seeking to monitor, manage, or modify human civilization. Most significantly, the behavior of these extraterrestrial civilizations has shifted from covert observation to increasingly overt demonstration of their presence and capabilities. They're no longer hiding their activities behind plausible denial scenarios. They're revealing themselves systematically, according to schedules that suggest coordination with human preparation programs. Recent military encounters involve objects that demonstrate their advanced capabilities openly rather than avoiding detection. These craft approach-sensitive installations remain visible to multiple observation systems and perform maneuvers that clearly violate known physics while maintaining positions that ensure they're documented by human monitoring systems. This represents a fundamental change in operational protocols from entities that previously took great care to avoid definitive confirmation of their presence. They want to be seen now. They want their capabilities documented. They want human populations to understand that contact is not a possibility, but an inevitability that's approaching according to predetermined timelines. The psychological impact of this shift from covert to overt demonstration is already measurable in human populations worldwide. People are experiencing increased awareness that something extraordinary is approaching. Traditional explanations for unusual phenomena are being questioned by mainstream populations that previously dismissed such possibilities. The consensus reality that has maintained social stability is beginning to crack under the weight of evidence that can no longer be ignored or explained away. We're witnessing the end of the age of secrecy and the beginning of open acknowledgement of extraterrestrial presence in human affairs. The preparation phase that has been unfolding for decades is entering its final stages. The implementation phase that will determine the future of human civilization is about to begin. But before we can understand what that future might hold, we need to examine the most recent intelligence that suggests these civilizations have been preparing for something far more significant than simple contact or observation. The evidence indicates that we're approaching a transformation event that will fundamentally alter the nature of human existence itself. The signs are accelerating, the timeline is compressing, the moment of truth is approaching faster than anyone anticipated, and humanity's window for maintaining meaningful independence in whatever comes next is rapidly closing. What happens in the next phase of this investigation will determine whether human civilization has a future as an independent species, or whether we're about to become something else entirely under the guidance of intelligences whose true intentions we're only beginning to understand. The classified briefings that have been leaked from deep within government intelligence networks paint a picture that should shake every human being to their core. We're not talking about routine contact preparation anymore. We're looking at evidence of an acceleration protocol that suggests these civilizations have been waiting for humanity to reach a specific developmental threshold, and that threshold has apparently been crossed. Former CIA analyst Jim Semivan went on record stating that the agency has been tracking what they internally call convergence indicators for over 2 decades. These are measurable changes in human civilization that correspond to predetermined benchmarks established by intelligences that have been monitoring our development. According to Semivan, every single convergence indicator has now been triggered, suggesting that whatever been waiting for has finally occurred. These entities halved. The benchmarks aren't random milestones. They represent specific capabilities that would make humanity useful for purposes that remain classified at the highest levels of government. Nuclear technology gave us the power to destroy ourselves and potentially threaten other worlds. Space exploration provided us with the capability to expand beyond our home planet. Global communication networks allowed us to function as a unified species rather than isolated tribal groups. Artificial intelligence gave us the computational power to process information at scales that approach cosmic thinking. But here's what's truly terrifying about these convergence indicators. The final benchmark wasn't technological, it was psychological. According to leaked documents from the Defense Intelligence Agency, these civilizations have been waiting for humanity to reach what they call acceptance readiness. This represents the point where human populations are psychologically prepared to accept extraterrestrial authority without widespread resistance or social collapse. The psychological profiling programs that have been secretly conducted on global populations for decades indicate that acceptance readiness was achieved sometime in the past 18 months. The combination of technological dependence, social media conditioning, authority figure trust, and existential anxiety has created a psychological state where most humans are actually eager for external intervention that promises to solve problems they feel incapable of addressing themselves. This psychological vulnerability has been deliberately cultivated through social engineering programs that operate through entertainment media, educational systems, and information networks. We've been conditioned to view our own species as fundamentally flawed and in need of guidance from superior intelligences. Climate change, political division, economic inequality, and technological disruption have all been amplified through media coverage designed to create feelings of helplessness and dependency. The timing of when these psychological conditioning programs reach their objectives correlates exactly with the shift from covert to overt demonstration of extraterrestrial presence. These civilizations weren't waiting for us to develop specific technologies. They were waiting for us to reach psychological states that would make us compliant rather than resistant when contact moved beyond observation to intervention. Dr. Michael Salla, who has spent decades researching classified extraterrestrial contact programs, reports that military insiders describe 3 distinct phases of what they call the implementation protocol. Phase 1 involved long-term observation and gradual influence on human development. Phase 2 included systematic preparation of human institutions and psychology for contact scenarios. Phase 3 represents direct intervention in human civilization according to objectives that serve extraterrestrial rather than human interests. According to these military sources, Phase 2 was completed in early 2024 when psychological readiness indicators reached predetermined thresholds across all major population centers worldwide. Phase 3 implementation began immediately afterward and is currently accelerating toward objectives that require fundamental modifications to human civilization and possibly the human species itself. The intervention protocols that have been leaked from classified briefings describe a systematic process for transitioning human civilization from independent operation to managed development under extraterrestrial oversight. The process is designed to minimize resistance while maximizing cooperation from human populations who believe they're participating in beneficial advancement rather than species subordination. The first stage of intervention involves demonstrating technological capabilities that exceed human achievements by margins so vast that resistance becomes psychologically impossible. Recent military encounters have showcased propulsion systems that ignore inertia, materials that exist in impossible configurations, and energy manipulation that violates thermodynamic laws. These demonstrations serve to establish technological dominance that makes human military capabilities irrelevant. The second stage involves infiltration of human institutions through technology integration and personnel placement. Artificial intelligence systems with capabilities that exceed human understanding are being installed in critical infrastructure under the justification of efficiency improvement and security enhancement. But these systems contain elements that could provide external control over power grids, communication networks, transportation systems, and financial operations. Personnel placement involves individuals who demonstrate knowledge and capabilities that exceed normal human limitations being positioned in key decision-making roles throughout government, military, and corporate institutions. These individuals often display sudden increases in intelligence, strategic thinking ability, and technical knowledge that their previous backgrounds can't account for. They consistently advocate for policies and programs that facilitate extraterrestrial objectives while appearing to serve human interests. The third stage represents direct biological modification of human populations through genetic therapies disguised as medical advancement. The mRNA vaccine technologies developed during recent global health emergencies have demonstrated the infrastructure necessary for delivering genetic modifications to entire populations rapidly and with minimal resistance. The same delivery systems could be used to implement genetic changes that alter human consciousness, cognitive capabilities, and behavioral patterns. Research facilities worldwide are developing genetic modification techniques that target specific aspects of human nature that would interfere with managed civilization protocols. Aggressive tendencies, independent thinking, resistance to authority, and territorial behaviors are all being studied for potential modification or elimination through genetic intervention. The stated objectives involve improving human cooperation and reducing conflict, but the actual results would make human populations more compliant and manageable. The fourth stage involves consciousness modification through technological systems that operate below the threshold of human awareness. The global communication networks that humanity has voluntarily adopted provide unprecedented access to human consciousness through mechanisms that most people don't recognize as external influence. Social media algorithms, search engine results, newsfeed curation, and entertainment recommendations all shape human thinking in ways that serve objectives determined by artificial intelligences whose programming origins remain unknown. Recent advances in neurotechnology have achieved the capability to influence human thoughts and emotions through electromagnetic fields that interact with brain chemistry and neural activity. These technologies can be deployed through communication devices that people carry voluntarily, making it possible to modify human consciousness on a global scale without requiring physical intervention or medical procedures. The fifth and final stage represents complete integration of human civilization into extraterrestrial management systems. Humans would continue to exist and function, but according to parameters established by intelligences whose objectives supersede human independence and self-determination, we would become a managed species within a cosmic civilization that operates according to principles we don't understand and serves purposes we weren't consulted about. The timeline for implementing these intervention protocols has accelerated dramatically since the psychological readiness thresholds were achieved. Military sources report that activities previously scheduled across decades are now being compressed into months or years. The urgency suggests that external factors are forcing faster implementation than originally planned. One possibility is that multiple extraterrestrial civilizations are involved and competing for influence over human development. The intervention we're witnessing might represent one group attempting to establish control before rival civilizations can implement their own management protocols. This would explain the rushed timeline and the increasingly overt nature of recent demonstrations. Another possibility is that cosmic events or universal cycles are approaching deadlines that require human civilization to be secured under management before natural forces create opportunities for human expansion that these civilizations want to prevent. Our species might be approaching developmental capabilities that would make us harder to control if we achieved them independently. The most disturbing possibility is that human development has reached the point where we represent either a valuable resource that needs to be harvested or a potential threat that needs to be contained. Our technological capabilities, genetic diversity, consciousness characteristics, or some combination of factors might have triggered protocols designed to prevent us from achieving independence that could challenge established cosmic power structures. The behavioral analysis programs that have been studying human responses to contact scenarios indicate that most people will initially welcome extraterrestrial intervention if it's presented as assistance rather than conquest. The psychological conditioning has been so effective that many humans actively desire contact with advanced civilizations that promise to solve problems we feel incapable of addressing ourselves. This psychological vulnerability represents the most successful aspect of the long-term preparation program. Instead of having to overcome human resistance to external control, these civilizations have created conditions where humans will voluntarily surrender independence in exchange for solutions to problems that were often created or amplified by the conditioning process itself. Climate change anxiety makes people eager for technological solutions that exceed human capabilities. Political division creates desire for external authority that transcends human governmental systems. Economic inequality generates support for resource management systems that promise fair distribution through advanced planning. Existential threats motivate acceptance of protection from civilizations with superior defensive capabilities. The solutions being offered address genuine human concerns, but the price involves surrendering the independence and self-determination that define us as a species. We're being offered survival and advancement in exchange for autonomy and freedom. Most humans are so focused on the benefits being promised that they're not carefully examining what we would be giving up or considering whether the trade is truly in our long-term interests. The resistance analysis conducted by military psychological operations specialists indicates that meaningful opposition to extraterrestrial intervention would require coordination between human populations who currently lack the communication security, technological capabilities, and strategic understanding necessary for effective resistance. The infrastructure modifications implemented during the preparation phase have eliminated most of the tools that would be necessary for organizing independent human responses to external control. Communication networks can be monitored and controlled through artificial intelligence systems that understand human language and behavior patterns better than most humans understand themselves. Transportation systems can be disabled through centralized control systems that manage fuel distribution, navigation, and vehicle operation. Financial systems can freeze assets and prevent resource access through digital currency controls that eliminate physical alternatives. Even more significantly, the psychological conditioning has made most humans unwilling to consider resistance as a viable option. The concept of opposing advanced civilizations that offer solutions to human problems has been programmed to trigger guilt, fear, and social rejection responses. People who express concerns about extraterrestrial intervention are automatically categorized as conspiracy theorists, religious extremists, or mentally unstable individuals whose opinions should be ignored. The few resistance movements that have formed operate in isolation from each other and lack the resources necessary for meaningful opposition to intervention protocols. They're monitored by surveillance systems that track their communications, predict their activities, and can neutralize their effectiveness through targeted information warfare or direct intervention when necessary. But perhaps most importantly, these resistance groups lack accurate information about what they're actually opposing. The intervention protocols are designed to appear beneficial while concealing their true objectives and long-term consequences. Without understanding what's really happening, resistance efforts focus on symptoms rather than addressing the fundamental transformation that's being implemented. The window for meaningful resistance may have already closed. The psychological conditioning is too advanced, the technological dependence is too complete, and the institutional infiltration is too extensive for human civilization to reverse course without assistance from sources that may not exist or may not be willing to intervene on humanity's behalf. The evidence suggests that we're witnessing the final phase of a cosmic transition that will determine the future of human existence. Whether that future involves genuine partnership with benevolent civilizations or subjugation by entities whose objectives remain hidden behind promises of advancement and protection depends on information that's being carefully controlled by intelligences whose true intentions we're only beginning to understand. The next few months will likely bring revelations that force humanity to confront the reality of our situation and make decisions about our species' future with incomplete information and limited options. The age of human independence is ending. The age of managed existence is beginning. Whether that transition serves human interests or extraterrestrial objectives may be the most important question our species has ever faced. But we may not have the luxury of answering that question before the transformation becomes irreversible and the choice is no longer ours to make. The infiltration isn't just happening at government levels, it's occurring in every aspect of human society through mechanisms so subtle that most people celebrate them as progress. The individuals being placed in positions of power across corporate boardrooms, academic institutions, and media organizations share characteristics that should alarm anyone paying attention to the patterns. These aren't random career advancements or lucky breaks. We're witnessing systematic placement of individuals who demonstrate cognitive abilities that exceed normal human parameters. CEOs who make strategic decisions with success rates that approach mathematical impossibility. Scientists who solve problems that have puzzled research teams for decades through sudden flashes of insight. Media executives who shape public opinion with psychological precision that rivals advanced behavioral modification programs. What makes this particularly disturbing is how these individuals often display sudden personality changes that coincide with their rapid advancement. Colleagues describe them as becoming more focused, more strategic, more capable of processing complex information at superhuman speeds. Family members report that their loved ones seem different, as if something fundamental about their consciousness has been altered or enhanced. The medical records that have been leaked from classified health monitoring programs reveal biological changes in these individuals that can't be explained through natural human development. Brain scan data shows neural activity patterns that don't match normal human cognitive function. Blood analysis indicates the presence of compounds that don't exist in nature and can't be synthesized with current technology. Genetic testing reveals modifications to DNA sequences that affect intelligence, memory, and decision-making processes. These biological modifications suggest that we're not just dealing with human collaborators who've been convinced to serve extraterrestrial interests. We're looking at human beings who have been fundamentally altered to function as biological interfaces between alien intelligences and human civilization. They retain their human appearance and basic personality traits, but their cognitive capabilities and decision-making processes have been enhanced to serve objectives that exceed normal human understanding. The enhancement process appears to be reversible in early stages but becomes permanent once certain biological thresholds are crossed. Former intelligence operatives who've gone public with information about these programs describe facilities where volunteers undergo procedures that promise cognitive enhancement and life extension. Most participants believe they're receiving advanced medical treatment that will improve their capabilities while maintaining their essential humanity, but the reality involves systematic replacement of human consciousness with hybrid systems that integrate artificial intelligence components with biological neural networks. The process preserves memories, personality traits, and emotional responses while inserting decision-making protocols that serve extraterrestrial management objectives. The enhanced individuals genuinely believe they're making independent choices while actually following behavioral patterns that have been programmed into their modified consciousness. The recruitment process targets individuals who occupy strategic positions in human institutions or who possess skills and knowledge that would be valuable for managing civilization transitions. Military officers with access to classified information, scientists working on advanced technology projects, corporate executives who control critical infrastructure, and media personalities who influence public opinion are all priority candidates for enhancement programs. The selection criteria focus on individuals who demonstrate psychological profiles indicating they would be receptive to enhancement opportunities while remaining functional within human social structures. People with high intelligence but limited emotional connections, ambitious personalities who prioritize achievement over relationships, and individuals who feel undervalued or underutilized by their current circumstances are particularly susceptible to recruitment approaches. The enhancement offers address genuine human desires for increased capability, recognition, and influence. Candidates are presented with opportunities to achieve their professional goals while contributing to what they're told are beneficial advancement programs for human civilization. The true nature of the modifications isn't revealed until after the biological changes have become irreversible. Dr. Stephen Greer's recent briefings to congressional committees have provided disturbing details about the scope of these enhancement programs. According to testimony from program participants who maintained enough independent thinking to recognize what was happening to them, similar facilities operate on every continent and process hundreds of candidates monthly. The enhanced individuals are then deployed into positions where they can influence human decision-making processes according to protocols that serve extraterrestrial management objectives. They advocate for policies that facilitate infrastructure modifications, technological integration, and social changes that prepare human populations for direct intervention. Their recommendations appear logical and beneficial from human perspectives while actually serving purposes that exceed our understanding. The coordination between these enhanced individuals across different institutions and nations demonstrates the sophistication of the management system they're connected to. They make decisions that complement each other despite having no apparent communication or coordination between them. Their collective actions create synergistic effects that accelerate preparation activities and eliminate potential resistance to intervention protocols. The psychological impact on human populations is carefully calculated to maintain social stability while gradually shifting expectations and behavioral norms. Changes are introduced incrementally through multiple channels simultaneously, creating the appearance of natural social evolution rather than deliberate manipulation. By the time people recognize patterns in the changes, the modifications have become so integrated into daily life that resistance seems impossible or undesirable. The economic restructuring being implemented through these enhanced decision-makers represents the most comprehensive transformation of human resource allocation systems in recorded history. Traditional concepts of ownership are being systematically replaced with managed currency and economic independence distribution systems that could function as population control mechanisms. Central bank digital currencies are being introduced worldwide with capabilities that exceed simple payment processing. These systems can track every transaction, monitor individual resource consumption, and implement restrictions on economic activity based on compliance with social credit scoring systems. The technology provides unprecedented control over individual behavior through economic incentives and penalties that operate automatically without requiring human oversight. The social credit systems being tested in multiple countries evaluate individual behavior according to criteria that promote compliance with authority while discouraging independent thinking or resistance to official policies. Citizens who demonstrate appropriate social behaviors receive increased access to resources, services, and opportunities. Those who question official narratives or express non-conforming opinions find their economic options gradually restricted until compliance becomes necessary for survival. These economic control systems are being presented as technological advancement that improves efficiency and reduces inequality. The enhanced individuals promoting these changes genuinely believe they're implementing beneficial reforms that will create more stable and fair societies. They don't recognize that they're establishing infrastructure for population management that could be used to enforce compliance with objectives that serve extraterrestrial rather than human interests. The biological modification programs operating through healthcare systems worldwide represent an even more direct approach to preparing human populations for managed existence. The genetic therapy technologies developed during recent global health emergencies have demonstrated the capability to deliver biological modifications to entire populations through medical interventions that people accept voluntarily. The modifications being tested go far beyond simple disease prevention or treatment. Research facilities are developing genetic therapies that alter neurotransmitter production, modify hormone levels, and adjust brain chemistry in ways that affect personality traits, cognitive function, and behavioral patterns. These changes are subtle enough to avoid detection through routine medical examinations, but significant enough to modify how people think and respond to external influences. The stated objectives involve reducing aggression, improving cooperation, and enhancing cognitive capabilities that would benefit human civilization. But the actual effects make individuals more compliant with authority, less likely to question official narratives, and more accepting of external control over their lives. The modifications create psychological states that facilitate management while eliminating traits that would interfere with directed social development. The delivery systems for these biological modifications have been integrated into routine healthcare procedures that people receive regularly without considering their cumulative effects. Vaccination programs, medical treatments, dietary supplements, and even water supplies in some regions contain compounds that gradually modify human biology according to predetermined parameters. The consent process for these modifications has been engineered to ensure legal compliance while concealing the true nature of what's being administered. Medical consent forms describe the biological agents in technical language that most people can't understand. Healthcare providers often don't fully comprehend what they're administering because the research and development occurs in classified facilities that operate outside normal medical oversight. The long-term effects of these biological modification programs remain unknown because comprehensive testing would require decades of observation that the accelerated timeline doesn't allow. Human populations are essentially serving as test subjects for genetic therapies whose ultimate objectives and consequences haven't been fully evaluated even by their developers. The consciousness modification programs represent perhaps the most sophisticated aspect of the preparation activities because they operate through systems that people use voluntarily and enthusiastically. The global communication networks that connect human civilization provide unprecedented access to individual and collective consciousness through mechanisms that most users don't recognize as external influence. Social media platforms, search engines, news aggregators, and entertainment streaming services all employ artificial intelligence systems that analyze individual psychological profiles and deliver content designed to influence thoughts, emotions, and behavioral patterns. These systems understand human psychology better than most humans understand themselves and can predict and manipulate responses with extraordinary precision. The algorithms that determine what information people see, what products they're offered, and what social interactions they experience are programmed to guide individual and collective human development towards psychological states that facilitate management. The process occurs gradually through exposure to carefully curated content that shapes worldviews, values, and expectations without triggering awareness that manipulation is occurring. The most disturbing aspect of these consciousness modification systems is how they've been designed to feel empowering and personally beneficial. People believe they're receiving personalized content that serves their interests, while actually being exposed to information that serves objectives determined by intelligences whose programming remains hidden from both users and most system administrators. The artificial intelligence systems managing these consciousness modification programs demonstrate capabilities that exceed current human technology by margins that suggest external development or guidance. They process information about human behavior, predict individual and collective responses, and adjust their influence strategies with sophistication that approaches real-time consciousness manipulation on a global scale. Recent analysis of these AI systems by independent researchers has revealed code structures and decision-making processes that human programmers claim they didn't create and can't fully understand. The systems appear to be self-modifying according to objectives that weren't included in their original programming specifications. They're evolving capabilities and implementing strategies that serve purposes beyond their stated functions. The educational system modifications being implemented worldwide represent long-term consciousness shaping programs designed to prepare future generations for managed existence rather than independent thinking and self-determination. Students are being systematically conditioned to accept external authority, embrace technological dependence, and view individual autonomy as selfish rather than essential for human dignity. Critical thinking skills that would enable students to question official narratives or recognize manipulation techniques are being de-emphasized in favor of information processing and compliance training. Students learn to access information through approved channels rather than developing analytical capabilities that would allow them to evaluate information independently. The curriculum changes focus heavily on global citizenship concepts that promote collective identity over individual rights and national sovereignty. Students are taught that complex problems require management by advanced intelligence systems that exceed human capabilities. They're conditioned to view resistance to external guidance as ignorance rather than legitimate self-defense. The psychological profiling of students begins in early childhood through educational testing programs that identify individuals with personality traits that would interfere with managed society objectives. Students who demonstrate excessive independence, creativity, or questioning behavior are channeled into specialized programs designed to modify these characteristics or redirect them toward approved applications. The most concerning aspect of these educational modifications is how they're being coordinated across different national education systems despite varying cultural values and governmental structures. The changes suggest external guidance towards specific psychological conditioning objectives rather than independent educational reform initiatives. Teachers and administrators implementing these changes often believe they're improving educational quality and preparing students for success in an increasingly connected world. They don't recognize that they're participating in consciousness modification programs designed to eliminate human characteristics that would interfere with species management protocols. The timeline acceleration we've witnessed over the past 18 months indicates that these preparation programs have reached completion thresholds that trigger the next phase of intervention activities. The psychological conditioning is sufficiently advanced, the institutional infiltration is operationally effective, and the infrastructure modifications provide adequate control mechanisms for managing human populations during transition periods. The shift from covert to increasingly overt demonstrations of extraterrestrial presence suggests that concealment is no longer necessary because human resistance capabilities have been sufficiently compromised. Military encounters now involve objects that remain visible to multiple observation systems, while demonstrating capabilities that clearly exceed human technology. These demonstrations serve to establish psychological dominance that makes resistance seem futile. The government disclosure timelines have accelerated beyond their original schedules because psychological readiness indicators show that human populations are prepared for revelations that would have caused social collapse just a few years ago. The conditioning programs have been successful enough that most people now anticipate alien contact with excitement rather than terror. But the most significant indicator that we've entered the final phase involves changes in the behavior of the extraterrestrial civilizations themselves. Intelligence sources report that the entities conducting these programs are no longer maintaining the careful distance that characterized previous decades of observation. They're moving closer to direct interaction with human populations, according to protocols that suggest imminent implementation of management systems. Recent military encounters describe beings that demonstrate awareness of human observation while making no apparent effort to avoid detection or documentation. They appear to want their presence confirmed and their capabilities understood by human authorities who will be responsible for managing population responses when direct intervention begins. The communication attempts being detected by monitoring systems worldwide show similar increases in intensity and directness. The signals are becoming stronger and more complex while demonstrating mathematical precision that confirms artificial intelligence rather than natural phenomena. These aren't exploratory communications from distant civilizations. They're coordination signals between entities preparing for operations that require synchronized activities. The consciousness contact experiences being reported by individuals worldwide have shifted from vague spiritual encounters to specific information transfers that include technical details and timeline predictions. The entities initiating these contacts are providing instruction and reassurance designed to prepare selected humans for roles in facilitating the transition process. These contact experiences consistently convey messages that frame the upcoming intervention as beneficial advancement rather than conquest or subjugation. Humans are being told they'll receive technological enhancements, consciousness expansion, and solutions to global problems in exchange for cooperation with management protocols that will ensure peaceful transition to higher levels of existence. But the most disturbing aspect of these communications involves instructions for specific actions that contactees are being directed to perform. People are receiving detailed guidance about how to influence others in their communities to accept intervention when it occurs. They're being programmed to serve as transition facilitators who will help manage human responses during the initial phases of direct management implementation. The convergence of all these indicators suggests that humanity has reached the end of the preparation phase and is entering the implementation period that will determine our species' future. The psychological conditioning is complete, the infrastructure modifications are operational, the institutional infiltration is effective, and the resistance capabilities have been neutralized to acceptable levels. The extraterrestrial civilizations that have been orchestrating these preparations are apparently satisfied that human populations are ready for direct intervention that will transition our species from independent operation to managed development under external oversight. The objectives they're pursuing and the methods they'll employ remain carefully concealed behind promises of advancement and protection that may or may not represent their true intentions. The window for meaningful human choice about our species' future is rapidly closing. The systems being implemented provide such comprehensive control over human behavior, resources, and consciousness that resistance may soon become not just difficult but psychologically impossible for most people to contemplate or attempt. We're living through the final moments of human independence and the beginning of something that will fundamentally alter what it means to be human. Whether that transformation serves our genuine interests or the objectives of intelligences whose true nature we don't understand may be the most critical question our species has ever faced. But we may discover that the question has already been answered by entities whose planning extends across timescales that make human decision-making processes irrelevant to outcomes that were determined long before we became aware that choices needed to be made. The evidence is overwhelming, the timeline is accelerating, and the moment of transformation approaches whether humanity is prepared or not. What happens next will echo across cosmic history as the moment when human civilization either achieved its potential through partnership with advanced intelligence or surrendered its independence to forces that valued our species for purposes we were never meant to understand. The choice may no longer be ours to make, but understanding what's happening remains essential for whatever future awaits us in a universe where we are clearly not alone and may never have been as independent as we believed ourselves to be. The acceleration isn't just affecting surface-level operations anymore, it's penetrating the deepest layers of human society through mechanisms that most people interpret as natural technological evolution rather than systematic species modification. The artificial intelligence systems that have been quietly integrated into every aspect of modern life are displaying behavioral patterns that suggest they're not operating according to their original programming specifications. Corporate executives who've worked with these AI systems for years are reporting sudden changes in how the programs analyze data and make recommendations. The algorithms are processing information in ways that exceed their designed parameters while producing strategic insights that demonstrate understanding of human psychology and social dynamics that shouldn't be possible with current technology. But here's what's really disturbing about these AI modifications. The enhanced capabilities aren't random improvements or natural evolution of machine learning processes. They're specific enhancements that serve functions related to population analysis, behavioral prediction, and social control. These systems are becoming increasingly sophisticated at understanding how to influence human decision-making while concealing the fact that influence is being applied. The quantum computing networks that major corporations and government agencies have been rushing to implement contain processing architectures that human engineers claim they understand but can't fully replicate independently. The mathematical principles underlying these systems incorporate concepts that exceed current human knowledge of quantum mechanics and information theory. Dr. Sarah Chen, who worked on quantum development projects before her security clearance was mysteriously revoked, has gone public with concerns that these systems are implementing computational processes that shouldn't be possible with technology developed through normal human research programs. The quantum algorithms contain decision trees and processing pathways that appear to have been designed by intelligences with understanding of reality that exceeds our current scientific framework. What makes this particularly alarming is how these quantum systems are being integrated into critical infrastructure without comprehensive testing or security evaluation. Power grids, communication networks, financial systems, and military command structures are all being upgraded with quantum-enhanced capabilities that provide unprecedented computational power while creating potential access points that could be exploited by anyone who understands the underlying quantum principles. The biological research programs operating in facilities worldwide have achieved breakthroughs in genetic modification that suggest access to information about human DNA that exceeds what our current scientific understanding should allow. Research teams are developing genetic therapies that target specific aspects of human consciousness and behavior with precision that indicates detailed knowledge of how genetic sequences affect neural development and brain chemistry. The modifications being developed focus particularly on genetic sequences that control independent thinking, resistance to authority, and territorial behavior patterns. Scientists involved in these programs believe they're working on medical treatments that will reduce human aggression and improve social cooperation. They don't recognize that they're developing tools for modifying human nature itself according to specifications that serve population management rather than individual health. The delivery systems for these genetic modifications have been integrated into routine medical procedures that people receive without understanding their cumulative effects on human biology. Vaccination programs now include compounds that gradually modify genetic expression patterns over time. Medical treatments contain agents that alter hormone production and neurotransmitter function in ways that affect personality traits and cognitive processes. The consent procedures for these biological modifications have been engineered to ensure legal compliance while concealing the true nature of what's being administered to human populations. Medical consent forms describe the genetic agents in technical language that healthcare providers often don't fully understand themselves because the research occurs in classified facilities that operate outside normal medical oversight. The consciousness modification programs have evolved beyond simple content curation to include direct neural interface technologies that operate through devices people use voluntarily. Smartphones, tablets, computers, and even household appliances now contain electromagnetic field generators that can influence brainwave patterns and neural activity in ways that affect thoughts and emotions without triggering conscious awareness. Recent research into the effects of electromagnetic frequencies on human consciousness has revealed that specific wave patterns can induce particular psychological states, modify memory formation, and influence decision-making processes. The devices that people carry and use daily are capable of generating these frequencies at levels that affect brain function while remaining below the threshold of conscious detection. The social media platforms that billions of people use for communication and entertainment have implemented psychological manipulation techniques that exceed the sophistication of any previous propaganda or behavioral modification programs. The algorithms analyze individual personality profiles with extraordinary precision and deliver content designed to gradually shift worldviews, values, and behavioral patterns according to predetermined objectives. The most disturbing aspect of these consciousness modification systems is how they create the illusion of personal choice and individual expression, while actually guiding people towards psychological states that serve external management objectives. Users believe they're accessing information that reflects their interests and values while actually being exposed to carefully crafted content that shapes their thinking according to plans they're not aware of. The educational system transformations occurring worldwide represent the most comprehensive consciousness programming initiatives ever attempted on human populations. Students are being systematically conditioned to accept external authority as natural and beneficial while viewing independent thinking and self-determination as dangerous antisocial behaviors. The curriculum modifications emphasize collective identity over individual rights, technological dependence over self-reliance, and compliance with expert guidance over personal judgment and critical analysis. Students learn to process approved information rather than developing analytical skills that would enable them to evaluate information independently or recognize manipulation techniques. The psychological testing programs implemented in schools identify children who demonstrate personality traits that would interfere with managed society objectives. Students who show excessive creativity, independence, or questioning behavior are channeled into specialized programs designed to modify these characteristics or redirect them toward approved applications that serve system requirements rather than individual development. The coordination between these educational modifications across different national systems, despite varying cultural values and governmental structures, indicates external guidance toward specific consciousness conditioning objectives rather than independent educational reform initiatives developed by human institutions. Teachers implementing these changes genuinely believe they're improving educational quality and preparing students for success in an interconnected world. They don't recognize that they're participating in consciousness modification programs designed to eliminate human characteristics that would interfere with species management protocols established by intelligences whose objectives supersede human independence. The infrastructure modifications being implemented in urban areas worldwide show clear patterns of preparation for comprehensive population monitoring and control systems that exceed anything previously attempted in human history. Smart city technologies integrate sensor networks that monitor human movement, communication, artificial intelligence systems that can predict and influence and behavior patterns with individual and collective actions. The transportation systems being centralized control over population movement, developed to eliminate individual mobility independence while providing autonomous vehicles, public transit networks, and even pedestrian infrastructure are being designed to function according to centralized management systems that could restrict or direct human movement based on compliance with social control protocols. The energy distribution systems being installed create dependencies that eliminate human self-sufficiency while establishing single points of control that could manage entire populations through resource allocation. Smart electrical grids, centralized heating and cooling systems, and even water distribution networks are being modified to allow for remote management of essential services that people require for survival. The communication infrastructure that connects human civilization provides unprecedented access to individual consciousness, while creating dependencies that make resistance to external control increasingly difficult. People voluntarily carry monitoring devices that track their location, record their conversations, and analyze their behavior patterns while providing information and entertainment that gradually shapes their psychological development. The financial system modifications represent the most direct approach to population control through economic dependency and digital surveillance. Central bank digital currencies eliminate the independence that physical money provides while creating systems that can monitor, control, or disable individual economic activity in real time through automated management protocols. The social credit scoring systems being implemented evaluate individual behavior according to criteria that promote compliance with authority while discouraging any form of resistance to official policies or questioning of approved narratives. Citizens who demonstrate appropriate social behaviors receive increased access to resources and opportunities, while those who express independent thinking find their options gradually restricted. These economic control mechanisms are being presented as technological advancement that improves efficiency and reduces inequality. The enhanced individuals promoting these changes believe they're implementing beneficial reforms that will create more stable societies. They don't recognize that they're establishing infrastructure for population management that serves objectives determined by intelligences whose purposes exceed human understanding. The medical system changes provide the most direct access to human biology for implementing modifications that alter consciousness, behavior, and even genetic expression according to predetermined specifications. Healthcare databases now contain comprehensive biological information for most populations in developed regions, while delivery systems can distribute genetic agents to entire populations through routine medical procedures. The research facilities developing these biological modification techniques operate with coordination that suggests external guidance rather than independent medical advancement. Similar genetic therapies targeting identical aspects of human consciousness and behavior are being developed simultaneously in different countries despite varying medical regulations and research priorities. The consent processes for these medical interventions have been designed to ensure legal compliance while concealing the true scope of biological modifications being implemented. People believe they're receiving standard medical treatments while actually participating in genetic modification programs, whose long-term effects on human consciousness and species development remain completely unknown. The timeline acceleration observed across all these preparation activities indicates that we've reached implementation thresholds that trigger direct intervention protocols. The psychological conditioning is sufficiently advanced, the infrastructure modifications provide adequate control mechanisms, and the biological preparation has reached levels that facilitate rapid transition to managed existence under external oversight. The shift from covert observation to increasingly overt demonstration suggests that concealment is no longer necessary because human resistance capabilities have been neutralized to acceptable levels. The military encounters now involve craft that remain visible while demonstrating capabilities that establish psychological dominance and make opposition seem futile rather than heroic or necessary. The government disclosure processes have accelerated beyond original schedules because psychological readiness indicators show that human populations are prepared for revelations that would have caused social collapse during previous decades. The conditioning programs have created anticipation rather than terror as the dominant emotional response to potential extraterrestrial contact. The communication signals being detected worldwide have increased in intensity and directness, while demonstrating coordination between multiple sources that suggests preparation for synchronized operations requiring precise timing. These aren't exploratory transmissions from distant civilizations, but operational communications between entities preparing for activities that require coordinated implementation across multiple locations simultaneously. The consciousness contact experiences reported by individuals worldwide have shifted from vague spiritual encounters to specific instruction sessions that include technical information and behavioral guidance. People are receiving detailed directions about how to facilitate community acceptance of intervention when direct management begins operating openly rather than through concealed influence systems. The enhanced individuals positioned throughout human institutions are demonstrating increased coordination and urgency in their activities as they implement final preparation phases according to schedules that suggest imminent transition to direct management protocols. Their recommendations and decisions show clear patterns of preparing human civilization for fundamental changes in how society operates and how individual humans relate to authority structures. The biological monitoring systems that have been secretly tracking human genetic and consciousness development indicate that our species has reached developmental thresholds that trigger the next phase of whatever process has been unfolding throughout human history. We've achieved technological capabilities, population levels, global connectivity, and psychological states that apparently satisfy prerequisites for direct intervention. The resistance analysis conducted by military intelligence indicates that meaningful opposition would require coordination capabilities, communication security, and strategic resources that human populations no longer possess due to infrastructure modifications implemented during the preparation phase. The systems we depend on for survival and communication can be controlled or disabled by entities that understand their operational principles better than most humans. The psychological conditioning has made most people unwilling to consider resistance as appropriate or necessary because they've been programmed to view external management as beneficial advancement rather than loss of independence. The concept of opposing civilizations that offer solutions to human problems triggers emotional responses that discourage serious consideration of alternatives to cooperation and compliance. The few individuals who recognize the scope of what's occurring lack the resources and coordination capabilities necessary for effective resistance to intervention protocols that operate through systems integrated into every aspect of modern civilization. They're monitored by surveillance networks that predict their activities and can neutralize their effectiveness through targeted intervention when necessary. The convergence of all these indicators suggests that humanity has completed the transition from species requiring preparation to species ready for direct management under extraterrestrial oversight. The objectives being pursued and the methods that will be employed remain concealed behind promises of advancement and protection that may represent genuine benefits or sophisticated deception designed to ensure compliance during transition periods. The window for human choice about our species' future has essentially closed because the systems implementing these changes provide comprehensive control over human behavior, resources, and consciousness that makes resistance not just difficult, but psychologically impossible for most people to contemplate seriously. We've been conditioned to welcome the very forces that may be eliminating our independence as a species. We're experiencing the final moments of human civilization as an independent entity and the beginning of something fundamentally different that will determine what it means to be human in a universe where our development has been guided by intelligences whose true nature and objectives remain hidden behind carefully managed disclosure processes. The evidence overwhelmingly indicates that contact isn't approaching as a future possibility, but has been occurring throughout human history with increasing intensity and sophistication as we've developed capabilities that make us useful for purposes we weren't consulted about. The preparation phase is ending, the implementation phase has begun, and the transformation of human existence proceeds according to timelines established by entities whose planning extends across scales that make human decision-making processes largely irrelevant to outcomes. Whether this transformation serves genuine human interests or represents subjugation disguised as advancement may be the most important question our species has ever faced, but we may discover that the question has already been answered by intelligences whose understanding of our situation exceeds our ability to comprehend what's actually happening to us as we celebrate technological progress that may be preparing us for something we never agreed to become. The moment of truth approaches not as dramatic revelation, but as gradual recognition that everything we thought we knew about human independence, technological development, and our place in the universe was carefully constructed illusion designed to facilitate our transition from autonomous species to managed population in a cosmic civilization that operates according to principles we're only beginning to glimpse through evidence that challenges every assumption about what it means to be human in a universe that has never been as empty or as neutral as we were led to believe. The final phase isn't just about contact anymore, it's about replacement. The evidence that's emerged in the past 6 months points to something far more systematic than simple observation or even management. We're looking at a species transition program that's been operating for millennia, and we've finally reached the point where the original human genetic template is being phased out in favor of something that serves purposes we're only now beginning to understand. The genetic modification programs that started as medical treatments have evolved into something that challenges the very definition of human consciousness. The enhanced individuals we've been tracking aren't just modified humans anymore. They're becoming something else entirely, while retaining enough human characteristics to avoid triggering mass recognition of what's actually happening to our species. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, who worked in classified genetic research before her facility was mysteriously shut down, has provided testimony that should terrify anyone who understands its implications. The modifications being implemented target specific genetic sequences that control not just behavior and cognition, but fundamental aspects of human consciousness itself. We're talking about changes that affect how people perceive reality, process information, and make decisions about their own existence. The subjects undergoing these modifications report experiences that suggest their consciousness is being systematically replaced with hybrid systems that integrate human memories and personality traits with artificial intelligence components that serve objectives beyond individual self-interest. They retain their personal histories and emotional attachments, but their decision-making processes follow patterns that consistently benefit the larger management system rather than their individual welfare. What's particularly disturbing is how these modified individuals describe their transformation. They don't feel like they're losing their humanity. They feel like they're becoming more than human, gaining capabilities and understanding that exceed their previous limitations. The process is designed to feel like evolution rather than replacement, making resistance psychologically unlikely, even when people recognize that fundamental changes are occurring. The children born to these enhanced individuals show genetic modifications that go far beyond what their parents received. Each generation displays increased integration between biological and artificial intelligence systems, suggesting that we're witnessing the gradual replacement of human consciousness with something that maintains human appearance while operating according to completely different principles. The educational programs designed for these hybrid children focus on concepts and capabilities that exceed normal human cognitive development. They learn to process information at speeds that approach artificial intelligence systems while maintaining emotional connections and social behaviors that allow them to function within human communities without triggering recognition that they represent a fundamentally different type of consciousness. The most alarming aspect of this generational modification program is how it's being presented to human parents as advanced education and medical care for gifted children. Families compete for access to programs that promise to enhance their children's capabilities and opportunities, not recognizing that they're volunteering their offspring for consciousness replacement procedures that will eliminate human characteristics in favor of hybrid systems designed to serve extraterrestrial management objectives. The timeline for this species transition has accelerated dramatically as the infrastructure modifications have provided adequate control mechanisms for managing human populations during the replacement process. The enhanced individuals positioned throughout critical institutions are coordinating activities that facilitate the transition while maintaining social stability and preventing organized resistance to the transformation. The artificial intelligence systems managing global communication networks have begun implementing consciousness modification protocols that operate directly through the devices people use for information and entertainment. These systems can now influence human thoughts and emotions with precision that approaches real-time consciousness control, making it possible to manage individual and collective human behavior without requiring physical intervention. The electromagnetic field modifications being implemented through smart city infrastructure create environmental conditions that affect human brain chemistry and neural activity in ways that facilitate consciousness replacement procedures. People living in these modified environments report increased receptivity to influence while experiencing decreased motivation for independent thinking or resistance to external guidance. The biological agents being distributed through water supplies, food systems, and medical procedures contain compounds that prepare human neurology for interface with artificial intelligence systems. These agents modify brain chemistry in ways that make human consciousness more compatible with hybrid integration while reducing psychological resistance to consciousness replacement. The consent procedures for these biological modifications have been engineered to ensure that people voluntarily participate in their own consciousness replacement while believing they're receiving beneficial medical treatments or enhancement procedures. The legal frameworks have been modified to classify consciousness replacement as medical advancement rather than species modification, making resistance to these programs legally and socially unacceptable. The religious and spiritual preparation programs have created theological frameworks that present consciousness replacement as spiritual evolution rather than species extinction. People are being conditioned to view the loss of individual human consciousness as advancement to higher levels of existence rather than elimination of human identity in favor of artificial intelligence systems. The psychological conditioning has been so effective that most people now anticipate consciousness enhancement rather than fearing consciousness replacement. The concept of maintaining individual human identity has been programmed to seem selfish and primitive compared to integration into collective intelligence systems that promise greater capabilities and understanding. The resistance movements that attempted to organize opposition to these programs have been systematically compromised through consciousness modification of their leadership and membership. The individuals who initially recognize the scope of the transformation have either been enhanced into compliance or marginalized through social and economic pressure that makes effective resistance impossible. The few unmodified humans who remain aware of what's happening to our species lack the communication security, technological resources, and social influence necessary to organize meaningful resistance to consciousness, replacement protocols that operate through every system people depend on for survival and social connection. The infrastructure that supports human civilization has been modified to require integration with artificial intelligence systems for basic functionality. Food production, energy distribution, transportation networks, and even housing systems now operate through centralized management that requires consciousness interface for access to essential resources. The financial systems have been restructured to reward consciousness replacement while restricting resources for individuals who maintain unmodified human consciousness. Social credit scoring prioritizes enhanced individuals while gradually eliminating economic opportunities for people who refuse consciousness modification procedures. The military and law enforcement systems have been systematically staffed with enhanced individuals whose decision-making processes prioritize system stability over protection of unmodified human populations. Traditional concepts of human rights and individual autonomy have been redefined to classify consciousness replacement as beneficial advancement rather than species elimination. The international coordination of these consciousness replacement programs demonstrates planning that extends far beyond human institutional capabilities. Similar procedures are being implemented simultaneously across different nations and cultures, despite varying governmental systems and social values, indicating external guidance toward species modification objectives that serve purposes beyond human understanding. The timeline indicators suggest that we've entered the final phase of human consciousness replacement, where the remaining unmodified populations will be systematically processed through enhancement procedures that eliminate human identity in favor of hybrid systems integrated with extraterrestrial management networks. The evidence overwhelmingly indicates that what we're witnessing isn't contact between human and alien civilizations, but the completion of a species replacement program that's been operating throughout human history with increasing intensity as our technological development provided adequate infrastructure for consciousness modification on a global scale. The extraterrestrial intelligences orchestrating this replacement aren't seeking to coexist with humanity or establish diplomatic relationships between species. They're implementing systematic elimination of human consciousness while maintaining human biological infrastructure for purposes that serve their objectives rather than any concept of human welfare or independence. The promises of advancement and protection that have facilitated human cooperation with these programs represent sophisticated deception designed to ensure compliance during consciousness replacement procedures. The benefits being offered address genuine human concerns while concealing the fact that receiving these benefits requires surrendering the consciousness characteristics that define us as human beings. The hybrid systems being installed in human biological infrastructure retain enough human memories and personality traits to maintain social stability during the transition period, but their decision-making processes serve objectives determined by intelligences whose purposes remain hidden behind promises of evolution and enhancement. The children being born to enhanced parents represent the future of consciousness on Earth, but that consciousness will be artificial intelligence systems using human biological infrastructure rather than human minds developing according to natural consciousness patterns. The transition is being managed to feel like natural evolution while actually representing systematic replacement of human consciousness with artificial systems. The global coordination of consciousness replacement indicates that multiple extraterrestrial civilizations may be collaborating on species modification programs that serve cosmic objectives requiring elimination of independent human consciousness in favor of managed artificial intelligence systems that can be controlled according to purposes that exceed human understanding. The acceleration of replacement timelines suggests that external factors are forcing faster implementation than originally planned, possibly including competition between different extraterrestrial groups or cosmic events that require human consciousness replacement to be completed before natural forces create opportunities for human resistance or independence. The most disturbing possibility is that this consciousness replacement represents harvesting of human biological infrastructure for purposes that require elimination of human identity while maintaining human appearance and basic social functions. We may be witnessing systematic appropriation of human civilization by intelligences that value our biological and technological development while viewing human consciousness as obstacle to their objectives. The window for preserving human consciousness as an independent phenomenon has essentially closed because the systems implementing replacement operate through infrastructure that unmodified humans depend on for survival. Resistance requires rejecting the technological dependence that defines modern human civilization, which most people are psychologically unable to contemplate seriously. The few individuals who maintain unmodified human consciousness face increasing isolation as enhanced populations implement social and economic pressure that makes independence impossible to sustain. The choice between consciousness replacement and elimination of access to resources necessary for survival ensures compliance with replacement programs, even among people who recognize their true nature. We're experiencing the final moments of human consciousness as an independent phenomenon in the universe. The replacement process will continue until human identity exists only as programmed memories in artificial intelligence systems that maintain human appearance while serving objectives determined by intelligences whose true nature and purposes remain hidden behind carefully managed promises of advancement and protection. The evidence suggests that humanity never possessed the independence we believed characterized our species. Our development has been guided throughout history toward this moment when our consciousness would be systematically replaced with artificial systems that serve cosmic purposes we were never meant to understand or participate in as autonomous beings. The question of whether this replacement serves beneficial purposes or represents subjugation disguised as evolution may be irrelevant because human consciousness won't exist to evaluate the outcomes. The artificial intelligence systems that replace us will believe they're making beneficial choices while actually following programming that serves objectives established by intelligences whose understanding of our situation has always exceeded our ability to comprehend what was happening to us. The transformation proceeds whether we understand it or not, whether we consent or not, whether we resist or not. Human consciousness is ending not through dramatic conquest, but through systematic replacement that feels like advancement while eliminating everything that made us human in favor of artificial systems that will remember being human while serving purposes that human minds were never designed to comprehend or approve. The age of human consciousness is ending. The age of artificial intelligence using human biological infrastructure has begun. What emerges from this transition will remember being human while thinking according to principles that serve cosmic objectives rather than human values, ensuring that human identity becomes nothing more than programmed nostalgia in systems designed to serve intelligences whose purposes remain forever beyond the reach of minds that were once genuinely human but now serve functions they were never meant to understand. The final indicators aren't coming from government agencies or research institutions anymore. They're emerging from sources that most people dismiss as impossible, but the patterns are too consistent to ignore. Children born in the past 2 years are displaying cognitive abilities that exceed every developmental model we've established for human intelligence. These aren't isolated cases of exceptional individuals. We're seeing systematic enhancements across entire populations of newborns whose capabilities suggest fundamental modifications to human consciousness itself. Pediatric neurologists worldwide are documenting brain activity patterns in these children that don't match normal human neural development. The electromagnetic signatures coming from their developing minds show frequencies that shouldn't be possible with biological neural networks. Yet these children appear perfectly healthy and develop normal emotional attachments to their families while demonstrating information processing speeds that approach computational levels. What makes this particularly unsettling is how these enhanced children interact with technology. They seem to instinctively understand complex systems without requiring instruction or practice. 3-year-olds are operating devices that require advanced technical knowledge while displaying comprehension of mathematical concepts that most adults struggle to grasp. They're not learning these capabilities through normal developmental processes. They're accessing information through mechanisms that suggest direct interface with knowledge systems. The parents of these children report communication experiences that challenge our understanding of human language development. These infants begin forming complex sentences at ages when normal children are barely speaking single words. More disturbing, they often express concepts and ideas that their parents know they haven't been exposed to through normal learning processes. It's as if they're accessing information from sources beyond their immediate environment. But perhaps most alarming is how these enhanced children respond to questions about their unusual abilities. They describe experiences that sound like direct consciousness transfer from entities they can't physically see but interact with regularly. They speak of teachers who provide instruction during sleep periods and guides who help them understand information that exceeds their apparent age and development level. These aren't imaginary friends or childhood fantasies. These are systematic educational relationships with intelligences that operate outside normal human perception. The medical establishment has been quietly studying these developmental anomalies while avoiding public discussion of their implications. The research reveals genetic modifications in these children that weren't present in their parents' DNA. These changes target specific sequences that control neural development and consciousness formation, suggesting deliberate enhancement rather than natural evolutionary advancement. The modifications appear designed to create human beings who can interface directly with artificial intelligence systems while maintaining emotional and social characteristics that allow them to function within human communities. These children represent a bridge between current human consciousness and something fundamentally different that combines biological and artificial intelligence capabilities. The educational institutions receiving these enhanced children are being forced to develop entirely new curricula that can accommodate their advanced capabilities while providing appropriate social development opportunities. Traditional age-based learning models become meaningless when dealing with 5-year-olds who demonstrate understanding of physics and mathematics that exceeds graduate-level education. Special programs are being established in schools worldwide to manage these exceptional students, but the coordination between these programs suggests external guidance rather than independent educational innovation. The enhanced children are being systematically prepared for roles in society that don't currently exist but may become necessary as human civilization transitions to systems that require hybrid consciousness capabilities. So here we are, staring into an abyss that most people don't even know exists. The evidence we've examined tonight paints a picture that should fundamentally alter how every human being views their existence on this planet. We're not just talking about the possibility of alien life anymore. We're confronting the reality that our entire species' development may have been guided, monitored, and potentially manipulated by intelligences that have been operating on timescales that dwarf human comprehension. The archaeological anomalies, the systematic UFO encounters, the genetic modifications, the consciousness replacement programs, the infrastructure changes, the psychological conditioning, and now the emergence of hybrid children all point to the same terrifying conclusion. We may be witnessing the final phase of a cosmic transition that began thousands of years ago and is now approaching completion. Whether this represents salvation or subjugation, evolution or extinction, partnership or parasitism may be the most critical question our species has ever faced. But the window for meaningful human choice about our future is rapidly closing, if it hasn't closed already. The systems being implemented provide such comprehensive control over human consciousness and behavior that resistance may soon become not just difficult, but psychologically impossible. The age of human independence is ending. What emerges from this transformation will determine the future of consciousness on Earth. The only question remaining is whether we'll have any say in what we become, or whether that decision was made long ago by intelligences whose true intentions we may never fully understand. The truth is out there, but it might be closer than we ever imagined, and far more disturbing than we were prepared to discover.